It all started with a message I got from a great past work colleague, Winnie. She was looking for a Mediterranean cruise for a week in July on a mid-sized ship in a balcony cabin. That might sound pretty simple, but in that one simple request, it was clear she was about to fall headlong into 5 blunders that trip up so many cruise passengers in the Mediterranean. I'm Gary Bembridge. Here's what those blunders are, and here's what I told Winnie. The very first error she made was thinking that there is a Mediterranean cruise. It's so much more complicated and trips up many people. I told Winnie she needs to ask herself why she's going, what she wants to see and do, and that will ensure that we can make sure she doesn't go on the wrong Mediterranean cruise. There are 3 main Mediterranean itineraries that she should consider. The one that I recommend for first-timers like Winnie is the Western Mediterranean. These call on Spain, France and Italy. They depart usually from ports like Barcelona, Civitavecchia near Rome and Genoa, and they call on ports like Marseille, the French Riviera, so Saint-Tropez, Monte Carlo and Cannes, Livorno for Florence and Nice, La Spezia for Cinque Terre, and some even go down to Naples to visit Pompeii and Capri. Some also call on islands with fantastic grand architecture like Valletta in Malta and Palma de Mallorca. This itinerary is perfect for first-timers like Winnie because you get to see most or many of the really famous Mediterranean cities and also sites in just one trip. The itinerary and the excursions, they focus pretty heavily on exploring local culture, historical sites, museums, architecture, culinary and wineries. I suggested to Winnie that if she enjoyed a Western Mediterranean itinerary and wanted to go on another one, her next should be an Eastern Mediterranean one. This is probably my personal favorite of all of the cruises. Departing mostly from ports around Venice and Piraeus near Athens, these visit Italy, Croatia, Montenegro, Greece, and sometimes they even go to Turkey. The most popular ports include Split, Dubrovnik, Corfu, and Greek islands and ports like Katakolon, Santorini, and Mykonos. Now, while the itinerary and excursions also focus on culture, historical sites, museums, architecture, they do tend to be a little bit more on the active side. I said to Winnie if she wants to return to the Mediterranean after that itinerary, I then recommended a more southern and Greek islands itinerary, especially if she wanted to have more of a beach mixed with ancient sites and experience. Now, mostly sailing out of Piraeus near Athens, the islands visited vary very much based on the size of ship. So smaller ships call on more of out-of-the-way islands, as well, of course, going to the large and best-known ones like Santorini, Rhodes, and Mykonos. While those 3 Mediterranean cruise options tend to be 7 nights long and meet her request for a week-long cruise, there is a really big blunder that many people make, as I have in the past, that I also needed to warn her about next. First, whatever week-long itinerary she books will always include 1 or 2 must-see cities that she thinks she will see but actually won't see at all. For example, I showed her the 7-night Western Mediterranean cruise I was about to go on. The advertised itinerary prominently calls out Barcelona and Rome as 2 ports, but they are where I embark and disembark. Now, if I hadn't booked a pre-stay in Barcelona and a post-stay in Rome, I would see nothing at all of those cities, other than, of course, glimpses from the bus or the taxi window while being transferred between the airport and the ship. To see the cities where Winnie embarks or disembarks, I strongly encouraged her that she must add stays there or she won't see anything of those fantastic ports. Second, most underestimate how tiring a week-long Mediterranean cruise can actually be. Few have sea days for Winnie to relax because they're going to call into ports pretty much daily. She'll be out exploring most of the day and enjoying the dining and entertainment well into the evenings. She'll be flying in, so likely tired and jet-lagged. Another good reason, of course, for having a pre- and post-stay. And thirdly, this is all magnified as quite a few Mediterranean ports are far from the advertised city or sites, which means many of our excursions could be 8 to 10 hours long every day. Look at my upcoming cruise as an example. The itinerary is advertised as Provence, Marseille, Florence, Pisa, Livorno, and Rome, Civitavecchia. On Eastern Mediterranean ones, you might see Venice, Ravenna or Trieste, Olympia, Katakolon, and Piraeus, Athens. The time to get to places advertised like this on the itinerary can take a really long time. Rome, for example, can take up to 2 hours each way based on traffic from Civitavecchia. Florence, 1.5 to 2 hours each way from Livorno. Venice, which most ships cannot sail into anymore, use Ravenna or Trieste, which are 2 hours drive away. Even places like Olympia from Catacolon, Cinque Terre from La Spezia can take up to an hour or more each way. So with Winnie understanding the issues around week-long trips, I wanted her to now tackle her plan to cruise in July, a blunder so many people make. The Mediterranean cruising season runs from April to October, although a handful of ships will sail year-round. I warned Winnie that going in July and August is a mistake for 5 key reasons. First, it gets hot and sticky very. Secondly, it's peak season and extremely busy with both cruise and land-based travelers. Some Mediterranean countries, including France, Spain and Italy, for example, they close their factories, they close many businesses in those months, and everybody goes on vacation, mostly in Europe. It's really hard to get into places. There's crowds everywhere. Third, it is the most expensive time of the year to go. Fourth, as it's school holidays, families will be cruising. Now, even on lines that usually don't have kids will have kids. I told Winnie this is really, really important because many ships will be sailing way over capacity. Now, when ships declare occupancy, it's based on what's called lower berths, which means 2 people per cabin and doesn't count things like sofa beds, pull-down beds, and other places where people can sleep. So, for example, when I was on an MSC Cruises Meraviglia a couple of years back, they told me their official capacity was 4,500, but in July and August they often have 6,000 passengers because kids are sharing cabins with their parents. Now, while other ships may not be kind of as dramatic as that, all are likely to be at higher capacity when families are on board. Fifth, I warned her this is the prime scam and pickpocket season due to the peak and jostling crowds. To be honest with you, every time I've been in Venice, Barcelona and Rome in that peak July-August time, people off the ship have had wallets stolen, bags snatched and backpacks opened. So I suggested Winnie instead looks at the shoulder season. June and September are especially great months, though May and October work as well. Everything's open, it's great but not stifling weather, and since Winnie doesn't have to go in school holiday time and is going with a friend of hers, they'll have a less costly and much less crowded trip. Now, Winnie had said that she wanted to go on a mid-sized ship, but I worried she was falling into another trap here too. I suggested she step back, as there are a few considerations before settling on ship size and another blunder that a couple of people that I've seen make. There's enormous line and ship choice in the Mediterranean. So first I suggested we cut out the number of lines she should consider based, first of all, on her budget. Pretty much every cruise line, ranging from the most inexpensive, like say MSC, Norwegian, Carnival and Royal Caribbean, through to the most expensive cruise lines in the world, like Regent Seven Seas, Seabourn, Silversea, they all cruise here. And they basically offer the same itineraries and ports. So for example, Winnie could book a 7-night Mediterranean cruise next June for 2 people on MSC Seaview in their cheapest balcony cabin for $1,750. That's $125 per person per night. Or she could book a very similar 7-night Regent Seven Seas Voyager cruise in their cheapest balcony, where 1 night would cost the same as that entire MSC 7-night cruise. That's a staggering $12,600 for 2 people for a week, or $900 per person per night. I asked Winnie to think about what she wants those remaining lines that we've got left after that to add to her trip, as the ports and places are largely going to be the same. Does she want a deep immersion into Mediterranean history and culture, for example? Then I would suggest she looks at lines like Viking, which have multiple daily lectures with an onboard resident historian. That may be best. Or perhaps does she want lots of late night partying, big glitzy theatre shows, a really relaxed dress code? Then maybe MSC, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Carnival or Royal Caribbean, for example, would be best. Or perhaps does she want a more familiar British experience with dressy formal nights and live orchestra ballroom dancing? Then perhaps Cunard is going to be the one for her cruise. To avoid the trap of going on the wrong cruise line and getting the most from her budget, Winnie agreed to draw up a list of what she really wanted from the ship and the line. Now, ship size, of course, is a valid consideration that she should have. Winnie had said that she thought a mid-sized ship, because she heard it would basically be less busy, it would have fewer queues, but more because she'd heard they would go to more interesting ports. In the Mediterranean, the size of the ship is less critical in terms of what ports they call on than some other regions in the world. Now, definitely smaller ships can go into more out-of-the-way ports, but that really applies much more in Greek island itineraries than it does in the Western and Eastern Mediterranean. It's not as significant on those two itineraries. On these, most of the cruise ports tend to be used by all, both big and small ships. So I suggested that she focus much more on the experience she wanted rather than the ship size alone. So the experience she wanted on the ship, not the ship size. Now, the next error Winnie almost fell into, but I think she got it right in many ways by chance, was that she was looking at a balcony cabin. Winnie said online people were recommending to her that she take a balcony cabin because of the scenery to see while she was sailing in the Mediterranean. I don't think that is true. First of all, she's going to be sailing at night, and then she's going to be way out at sea, and the only time that she'll be close enough to view scenery is at sail in and sail out, both of which she may want to be out on deck for. I told her to choose a balcony over an inside or ocean view cabin only if she rated the upside and the experience worth the extra costs. I always choose a balcony when cruising in the Mediterranean or pretty much anywhere, as I like being able to step out into the fresh air, sit there in the evenings when sailing out, and of course for the floor to wall windows and all the extra light. I pointed out on her cruise she will likely have no or few sea days, so she's not going to use the balcony on a sea day, for example, to relax. And also because many of the Mediterranean ports, particularly in the Western Mediterranean, are working ports and not the most attractive ports. The views sitting out even on port days is not going to be that thrilling or exciting. Now, talking to Winnie, she, like me, decided she wouldn't be getting a balcony for the views because she felt an inside or ocean view may feel a little bit too claustrophobic. Thinking about the cabin experience that you will enjoy in the Mediterranean absolutely is the best way of avoiding the trap of falling into booking something for views, for example, that may not be there, or choosing a cabin that reduces your enjoyment. A cheaper cabin may not be good value if you find it stifling or claustrophobic. If you found these Mediterranean cruise tips interesting, why not watch this video where I look at the traps that most people fall into on Caribbean cruises, starting with the one I did on my first Caribbean trip. See you over there.